Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 27 series Rescue the Rockies. And the 2045 postseason is about to begin. Almost certainly will be our last postseason as GM of the Rockies, and this will almost certainly be our last episode, period, as general manager of the Rockies. Plan on stepping down at the end of this episode. We will still have at least one, maybe more episodes in this series where we'll sim into the future to find out what happens with the Rockies and what happens with some of the players that we have built this team around, the likes of Kevin Roberts Jr., Carlos Bear Barrel Davila, Ray Salas, and Leo Martinez and others. But the primary goal right now is going to be to see if we can close out this series with a long run through the postseason and possibly a ninth championship. We did have the best record in the NL this year at 92-70, but 92 wins for us is certainly down from where we have typically been. If I could click properly, we could go see our history here. And yeah, the 92 wins is the least that we've had since 2029. So really nice run here with the Rockies over the last couple of decades. Coming to an end at this point, though, looking at the playoff tree, the Orioles will be facing off against the A's or the Guardians. The Mariners will get the Blue Jays or the Racers. We'll face off against the Padres or the Cubs. And then the Mets will get either the Dodgers or the Atlanta Braves. We're going to also start doing a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who have been following this series over the years. You know that we get lots of good advice and feedback from our viewers, also known affectionately as the Worldwide Scouting Department, when you share your thoughts on what we should do in the draft, the IAFA period, the off-season in terms of our lineups, coaching staffs, many other topics over the course of the years. So before we sim through the first round of the playoffs, we're going to do a final check-in on some of the top prospects, or at least guys who we thought might become some of the top prospects in baseball who we missed out on or chose to go in a different direction on over the years. Pitching-wise, not really too many. Alex Mireles, guy who was available in the draft many years ago at this point, split this 2045 year between four major league teams, the Royals, the Orioles, the White Sox, and the Yankees. Was not particularly impressive with any of them, and amazingly, he pitched for all four of those teams at the major league level before July. So just really an insane pattern of being signed and released and given opportunities in the majors for Mireles. But the left-hander at 26 years old still looks like he could develop into a pretty solid pitcher if we believe the ceiling that our scout has outlined for him. But as a 26-year-old, particularly with the fact that he's going to miss the next 8 months with an injury, I think it's pretty unlikely that he will end up reaching his full potential there. Andy Navarro, still listed for some reason as the number 49 prospect in baseball, but El Professor Navarro, at least according to our scout, does not look like he has a big future ahead of him playing in independent ball for the Houston Terriers this past year. Few more interesting hitting prospects who we've gone in other directions over the years. Saul Bello, final check-in on him. He was an IAFA signing 8 years ago at this point, back in 2037, and he has become a really productive major league hitter with the Las Vegas Athletics. .262 average, 24 homers and 80 ribbies this year, put up a 133 WRC plus and a 2.6 WAR. Jumbito still in the early stages of his career. This was his first full season in the majors, but certainly expect big things to come. He's been an above-average offensive player at the major league level every chance that he's gotten, and looking at those ratings, would expect him to be pretty productive offensively going forward. Oliverio Garcia was a free agent, an international free agent, but not an international amateur free agent, an experienced guy who was on the market a few years ago. 205 average this year with 27 homers and 69 ribbies for the Milwaukee Brewers. Put up a 120 WRC plus, a 1.3 WAR. Looks like his best season in terms of his major league production was a couple of years ago in Milwaukee when he had 37 homers, 99 ribbies, put up a 3.2 WAR. A very productive, albeit expensive, major league player at this point. Shortstop Danny Pantoja, international free agent signing from a decade ago at this point. 274 average with 17 homers and 67 ribbies for the A's this year. Dudu Pantoja, pretty solid fielder with a productive bat, although he's likely to never hit for a huge average. But he did win a Silver Slugger back in 2040, and he is a two-time All-Star, including this past season. Center fielder Danny Bethancourt, 26 years old now, 215 average, 18 homers, 74 ribbies. Solid gap power, slightly above average home run power. The contact and the eye are the issues for him, just a 73 WRC plus. Do like his defense in the outfield, certainly a usable major league player, but not a superstar. 24-year-old Carlos Espinoza, IAFA signing from 6 years ago in 2039. Split the year between AAA Indianapolis and the majors with Pittsburgh. Hit 244 with a 114 WRC plus for the Pirates. 5 homers and 14 ribbies and 82 at-bats. The contact is going to be the issue for him, but the home run power is definitely there if he gets a more fulsome opportunity going forward. 24-year-old center fielder Luke Martinez hit 263 with 12 homers, 42 ribbies, a WAR of 1, and a slightly above average offensive player. Looking back at his history, he was a second-round pick in the 2039 draft 6 years ago. As you can see here, he was signed as a minor league free agent this year. Guy who looks like he'll probably bounce around as a 4A guy for the next few seasons, certainly. 24-year-old Adrian Nelson, second-round pick also in that 2039 draft. Split the year between AAA Memphis and had a cup of coffee with the Cardinals this year. Hit just a $156 and 32 at-bats. Still think that his gap power, his home run power, and his eye could all be above average, but he'll be 25 years old early next season, getting more and more questionable whether he'll ultimately reach his ceiling or not. Some younger guys who have been in more recent drafts. Alex Lazoo, the number 85 prospect in baseball, was an IAFA signing 3 years ago in 2042. He's been stuck in Double-A for the last 3 years with the Cleveland organization with the Akron Rubber Ducks. 233 average, 11 homers, 40 ribbies. Definitely questionable as far as his contact and his home run power. Still has a lot of work to do to reach his full potential. But if he does reach his full potential, certainly could be an interesting player. Catcher David Slocum, 21-year-old, was a second-round draft pick 3 years ago. Solid defensively, still developing offensively. Split the year between high A ball and Double-A. Was an above-average offensive player in Double-A. If he reaches his full potential, he's an interesting option as a major league catcher with above average defense and above average home run pop, but doesn't really have a lot of margin for error. He's probably a possible starter if he reaches his full potential, but if he only reaches 80-85% of his potential, despite the respectable defense, probably more of a 4A guy because of his bat. Catcher Mike Ramos, IAFA signing from 2042, is the number 7 prospect in all of baseball. Really good defense. What turned me off on him was concerns about his contact and the strikeouts. But the home run power, the eye, and the defense combination definitely had some members of the worldwide scouting department higher on him than we were. Mixed results. The negative, the 164 batting average with 101 strikeouts in 220 at-bats. The positive, he's a very good defensive prospect. Just don't know that he's ever going to hit enough to be a true major leaguer. And then Keith Kennedy, a guy who we looked at in the draft 3 years ago, and we actually drafted this past year, although we didn't have the opportunity to sign him. He's going to end up presumably being a free agent, or I guess he's returning to college, so he'll be available in the draft next year. Still looks like an interesting prospect, but we just didn't have the money to sign him, and we'll get a compensatory pick for him in next year's draft since we were unable to sign him. And fortunately, we've got a few days till our divisional series will begin. Mario Manriquez out for another week and a half, 2 weeks with a strained ACL. He could be competing for a spot on the roster in the National League Championship Series if he gets healthy and we get that far. Jorge Pacheco out for a couple weeks with a strained back, so similar timeline for him. Jeff Boyd out with a fractured finger, so he is unlikely to be on any of our playoff rosters. And the youngster Ernesto Menivar, mild oblique strain, day-to-day for the next week. He is likely to make the playoff roster. The youngster, the second-ranked prospect in all of baseball, put up a 2.08 ERA in the admittedly small sample size of 13 innings pitched, but allowed no home runs, struck out 17, had a whip of just over 1 in his small sample size with a half a win above replacement in the 6 games that he pitched, including 1 start. So hoping that he will be healthy and well and able to contribute as a long and middle reliever for us come the time when our postseason will get underway. And we're about to get our postseason underway. Only one wild card series went to 3 games. The Braves taking out the Dodgers. They'll be facing off against the Mets now. The Cubs swept the Padres, so we won't be facing either of our division rivals, no matter how far we end up going in the playoffs. The Guardians took out the A's. They'll be facing off against the Major League best Baltimore Orioles. And the Blue Jays took out the Indianapolis Racers. In their series, they'll get an opportunity against the Seattle Mariners. We were 7-5 this past year against the Chicago Cubs, 77-85 records. So the 8 4-team divisions does allow some weird things to happen from time to time. And with a 77-85 record, the Cubs are certainly not the most imposing divisional winner in the history of baseball. They actually had the worst offense in the National League, ranking just 16th in runs scored. You would think with our pitching staff that was the best in the National League, allowing only 570 runs, we should hopefully be able to shut them down pretty well in this series. The other matchup a little more even. We ranked 4th offensively, but the Cubs ranked 5th in terms of their pitching staff. So a little more of a fair match there. We have Jesse Hoffmeister, the 2043 NL Cy Young Award winner, on the mound for game number 1, 11-11 with a 3.77 ERA, struck out 233 batters, and put up a WAR of close to 4 for us this year. He'll be going up against, for the Cubs, Marshall Traurig, three-time All-Star. The 31-year-old righty was 11-7 with a 2.63 ERA and a 4 WAR. So a nice year for him. Does have the tendency to, at least over the course of his career, give up the gopher ball. Led the league with 30 home runs allowed back in 2043, although he's been better the last couple years. But our hope is that we'll be able to take advantage of facing off against him in Colorado today to get this series off to a big start for our Rockies offensively. Not the case, however, though. We scored 5 runs, but the Cubs scored 6, so we're in a very early hole. Did get home runs from the catcher Alex Arellano and the rookie Luis Vera, but the Cubs got a couple of homers as well. They jumped out to a 4-0 lead on us. We ended up coming back with 2 in the 5th and then 3 in the bottom of the 7th, including a 2-run homer by Vera to take the lead. They tied things up in the top of the 8th, and then in the 11th they put the go-ahead run on in the top of the 11th, and despite a single by Kevin Roberts Jr. in the bottom of the 11th, the Cubs hang on for a 6-5 victory. Hoffmeister, 4 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings. Traurig only pitched 4 2/3 innings and allowed 7 hits, but he got away with only giving up 2 earned runs. Blown save by Josh Joss, and then the lefty Roberto Ramirez takes the loss in relief for us in the bottom of the 11th after we got 2 innings pitched out of our closer Ryan Harville. Alex Gomez and John Jefferson, no surprise to those of you who have followed us over the years, both injured while running the bases. Looks like a sprained knee for Gomez. John Jefferson, a sore thumb. Probably going to let them both play through those injuries. Hopefully we can get a win tomorrow, and then we'll have a day off before heading to Chicago. And our Rockies definitely feeling some pressure after losing game number 1 at home. Fortunately, we've got arguably the best pitcher in baseball on the mound in game number 2. We'll be going up against the righty Nick Opperman, 5-13 with a 3.60 ERA this year. Not impressive stuff, but a good, solid major league pitcher. We've got the 2044 Cy Young Award winner and likely 2045 Cy Young Award winner Ray Salas on the mound. 15-9 this year with a league best 272 strikeouts. Led the league in WHIP, FIP minus, and WAR for a second straight year. 7.8 WAR. He has been dominant since he joined us in the majors a little over 3 years ago. Former 17th round draft pick, certainly someone who we've got an incredible talent change randomness from, and we're counting on a big performance for him today against the Cubs. And a 10-6 win, Salas with the W, Opperman with the loss. We got home runs from the first baseman Daniel Torres and then Jake Kubas, who only made the roster because of that injury to Manriquez we were talking about. Hit a .175 and 80 bats, really on the team for his defense, but he probably got a pinch hit opportunity somehow during the game. Yeah, it looks like he took over at second base after being a pinch runner, so I'm assuming he came in for Jefferson, who looks like he suffered another injury in the game, so that's not necessarily great, but probably something more serious that may keep him out. Scored 4 runs in both the bottom of the 3rd and the bottom of the 4th to take an 8-0 lead. They did actually close the gap to 8-6 by the top of the 8th, but we added a couple of insurance runs in the bottom of the 8th to guarantee the victory, but they still did their job. Got a win off of us here in Colorado. Salas with the win, as we talked about, struck out 9 over 5 1/3 innings, allowed just 1 earned run, so a nice performance from him. CJ Coons, the youngster who spent most of this year up with us in the majors. Another top prospect who was respectable. Rough outing for him in relief. Same thing for Jim Johnson, but fortunately we were able to hold on and get the victory. Our former center fielder, Mike Castro, ejected in the first inning for arguing a strike call. Another infielder, diagnosis pending injury for Nick Dyer. And as we talked about, Jefferson also injured as well. So we may be relying on Mario Manriquez to rejoin the team very shortly. Hopefully we can regroup in the off day, figure out exactly what's going on with these injuries, and set ourselves up to win at least one game in Colorado, and in a worst case scenario, becoming back to Colorado to win the series. I guess I meant to say we hopefully win at least one game in Chicago. That would have been a lot more accurate. And not a great situation for us in terms of injuries. Manriquez still an unknown return from his injury, so he's not really a realistic option for us. Fortunately, Gomez completely healthy. John Jefferson, just a mild hamstring strain. Always risky, but are in the playoffs. Got to hope for the best. Nick Dyer, out for a week with a foot contusion. That seems like a very soft response for a playoff series, but I guess it must be a really bad foot contusion to keep him out. Don't necessarily want to lose Dyer, given that we do have guys like Jefferson and Gomez who have really bad injury histories, as well as Manriquez already banged up. So if we were to put Dyer on the playoff IL right now, we'd lose the option to have him on the NLCS roster. Of course, we need to get to the NLCS before that would be an issue, but given that we are running with 14 position players and only 12 pitchers, I think we'll roll with who we've got at this point. If the injury situation gets a little more dire, we can always make another move. Game number 3 in Chicago. On the mound for the Cubs, the 33-year-old left-hander Geffen Quico Canetti, 11-12 with a 3.67 ERA and 1.13 WHIP this year. Put up a nice 2.3 WAR season for Chicago. We've got Takamasa Ichimura, 14-10 with a 2.86 ERA and a 4.7 WAR. Led the National League this year in ground out percentage for us. Good, solid pitcher. Certainly would think that this pitching matchup favors us. Would love to get this win today. Know that worst case scenario, we're going home for a Game 5 in Colorado. And we do get the win 4-2. Ichimura with the W, Ryan Harville with the save, Luis Vera, the youngster, with another home run. Taking a look at the box score, jumped out to a 1-0 lead in the 4th, and then in the top of the 6th, 3-run dinger from Vera put us up 4-0. They did score runs in the 6th and 7th to claw their way back, but fortunately the bullpen held. Ichimura, 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 earned run over 5 innings. Joss, Ramirez got holds. Harville ends up pitching the final inning and a third, facing the final 4 batters, striking out 2 of them to earn the save, and as noted, kind of did what we needed to do here. Obviously would prefer to clinch it tomorrow in Chicago, but we know that the worst case scenario, if we don't end up clinching, is that we'll get a Game 5 at home. On the mound for the Cubs, the right-hander Russ Birch, 28-year-old, split the year between the Angels and the Cubs this year. He was waived by the Angels, signed by the Cubs, where he was 5-2 with a 2.47 ERA. 14 innings pitched, but no starts. But he pitched 73 innings for the Cubs, so it looks like they may use him as a follower. Definitely a very interesting line there. Not sure how many pitchers in Major League history have 73 innings pitched in 14 games without starting a single one of them. Not the greatest stuff for Birch, not the greatest stuff for our pitcher, but he's still a very experienced veteran. 3-time Cy Young Award winner Leo Martinez has become our 4th starter this year after missing most of last year with an injury. 9-7 with a 4.53 ERA, put up a 3.1 WAR. We would love the veteran to close out the Cubbies today. And we get our wish. John Jefferson, day-to-day injury, strained back, going to take him a week to recover. So depending on what happens with Manriquez over the next couple of days, and it looks like we've also got an injury with Kevin Roberts Jr., maybe adjusting the roster for the National League Championship Series. But fortunately, we will be there. 7-5 victory. Took a 5-0 lead. 2-run homer from Jefferson in the second before he got hurt. Davia added an RBI single. They came back, closed the gap to 5-3 before we doubled them up with a RBI double by Tom McNeil in the top of the 6th. Ended up holding on for a 7-5 victory. Martinez, not great. Tomas Pena, who was our 5th starter most of this year, now working out of the bullpen, gave up 3 hits, a walk, 2 earned runs over 3 1/3 innings. I got credit for the W. And Matthew Halota, the left-hander with the injury. Both KR Jr. and John Jefferson injured while running the bases. So hopefully we'll have a few days to potentially recover from this. Take a look at the playoff tree. And the Braves and Mets series still going on. Obviously, our hope there is that the Mets win, and then there will be an off day tomorrow, and then a Game 5 in the not-too-distant future. Both of the American League series are knotted up at a game apiece at this point, so should have at least a couple of days, or more than a couple of days, before our next series begins, which will hopefully give us an opportunity to find out exactly what these injuries are and make some good decisions as far as our playoff roster for the National League Championship Series. And although Kevin Roberts Jr. is dealing with that potential injury from running the bases, he did win the National League Division Series Most Valuable Player Award, adding to a very decorated career for Mr. Roberts. 37-year-old. Don't love that there's that pending knee injury, but he has now been a playoff series MVP 11 times over the course of his career, to go with his 3 Most Valuable Player Awards, a boatload of all-star honors, and a bunch of silver sluggers as well. Don't love the sound of a knee injury for a 37-year-old who just led the league in steals this past year, but we will see and find out the exact impact of that in the not-too-distant future. Before that, however, one more thing we wanted to look at in our efforts to close the door on this series in an appropriate way. What have some of our former players done over the past few seasons? Mike Castro, of course, we just faced off against in the playoff series. He left us as a free agent that we were unable to afford this past offseason. Batting average dipped to 242, 13 homers and 55 ribbies for the Cubs this year. Was a 94 WRC plus and a 3.8 WAR. Stole 30 bases, so still definitely adding value, but does seem with the money he's making and his age that we probably let him move on at just about the right time. Chris Kuhn, another player that we let leave as a free agent this past offseason, 255 average with 14 homers and 39 ribbies for the Racers. Put up a 112 WRC plus, did also steal 28 bases for them after leading the NL last year with 40, 2.3 WAR. So a little less pop in his bat than he had displayed in previous seasons with us. But when you look at his WRC plus and his WAR, pretty typical Chris Kuhn season for the Racers. Tev Rumler, left fielder, remains with Atlanta. 220 average, 13 homers and 41 ribbies this year, slightly above replacement level. Useful guy, but probably not worth the almost $17 million a year he's making at this point. Eric Mokeen had a nice run for us a few years ago as a left-handed hitting outfielder. Hit only a .199 this year in his second season with the Yankees. 12 homers and 40 ribbies and 302 at-bats, 69 WRC plus, and he was below replacement level. Certainly doesn't look special at all, but the left-handed hitter is still a borderline usable bat, at least against right-handed pitching. Ted Miller retired at this point. He actually retired at the end of last season. Had a nice run with us as a left-handed hitting DH/corner outfielder before we let him go as a free agent. And really, we got the best years of his career. He hit over 20 home runs for us in each of his 7 seasons in Colorado. Never hit more than 17 in a major league season after he moved on from our Rockies. Finished with a .247 average, 239 homers, 812 ribbies. Ted Slade is a guy that we traded away a couple of off seasons ago. He struggled to find a full-time job, played just 8 games this year with the White Sox, went 1 for 12 with a .083 batting average. Looking for work as a free agent now. He, with his ratings and that crazy power, was a very effective platoon player for us against left-handed pitching. He hit exactly 12 homers for us in the 4 straight years that he was a platoon first baseman / DH for us, but looks like the White Sox have not felt comfortable using him in that type of role. Ryan Stone was our longtime first baseman. He retired a few years ago, only played 47 major league games after we let him leave. He missed that 2040 season with an injury, hit .218 with 3 homers and 15 ribbies and 124 at-bats with Tampa Bay, and his career was over at the age of 34. Was a very productive left-handed hitting first baseman for us for many years. A guy who was a early pick for us out of UVA as a high draft pick and became a cornerstone who we built around. He was a member of 6 of our World Series championship teams, including the squads that won 5 in a row from 2033 through 2037. Jordan Contreras spent the last couple of years in the Independent League, was once a very prominent prospect in our organization, stole a ridiculous 97 bases this past year for the Staten Island Ferry Hawks, but the 35-year-old, also known as P. Vitty, probably unlikely to ever get back to the majors at this point, ended up hitting .231 over 3,100 major league at-bats. Did steal 360 bases, though. Never actually played in the majors with us. I believe we traded him away to the Cubs. Can't even remember exactly who that was for, but that was a long time ago. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was the trade that brought us Anthony Pack Jr., who ended up being a solid defensive center fielder for us for many years, although his offense was never particularly impressive. And we'll talk about him shortly. In fact, we'll talk about him right now. Anthony Pack Jr. Ended up, as I said, being a really good defensive center fielder for us for several seasons. Put up a 5.1 WAR that first year with us. That was the best year he ever had with us. By the end of his time with us, he was struggling to keep the batting average up above the Mendoza line. Played 3 more years with Salt Lake, Pittsburgh, and San Diego before his career came to an end. 457 stolen bases over Pac's career. He never led the league in steals for us, although he was often among the top 3 in the league. Did steal 53 bases to lead the league as a 35-year-old with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Nils Mensch, a international amateur free agent we signed out of Germany many years ago, has had several cups of coffee in the majors, both with us a couple of years ago, and since then over the last 2 years with the Yankees, the Twins, and the Marlins. Just a 165 hitter over 200 major league at-bats. That was always the question with him. Liked his glove, liked his speed, but it quickly became apparent that development of his bat was going to be the career-limiting factor for Nils Mensch, and that has ended up being the case for the switch hitter Marquis Mensch. And we've also got a number of former Rockies pitchers who are no longer with us. Chris Kennedy, one of the most talented among them, won a Cy Young Award for us back in 2040, 3-time winner of the Mariano Rivera Award. Injury issues have become a massive issue for him over the past few years, and he signed a massive contract with the Dodgers for $28 million a year, I believe for 3 years, only 2 years, this past offseason. Ended up suffering a torn UCL in spring training, so he missed the entire year. His elbow has become a huge problem over the last few years. Ruptured his UCL late 2043 and missed a good chunk of late 2042 and missed a good chunk of 2043. Tore the flexor tendon in that same pitching elbow late in 2043 and missed most of 2044. And then obviously a torn UCL also on that right elbow in spring training this year. Missed the entire season. He has been a great pitcher when he's been healthy, 34 years old, and although the Dodgers paid him over $28 million this past year, still hasn't thrown a major league pitch for any team except our Colorado Rockies. Another big departure for us this past offseason was the closer Eric Schweitzer. Certainly we're going to be limited financially anyways, but with the crank up in the difficulty made it even trickier for us to try to sign any free agents, not just ours, but from other teams this past offseason. Schweitzer with the Braves led the National League with 42 saves, put up a 2.09 ERA, a sub-1 whip, and a 2 WAR, 73 strikeouts over 60 and a third innings pitched. So a really nice season for Schweitzer. Ended up signing that 1-year deal. Actually, that was the qualifying offer that we had given to him that he accepted for this past year. We then traded him away, trying to free up some money since we were so salary constrained, and he has subsequently signed a 2-year extension with the Braves organization. So actually, that's right, he didn't leave us in free agency. We signed him to that QO, and then he left. Bob Russell was a really important pitcher for us for many years, started having some injury issues towards the end of his run with us. Last year he was in KC. This past year was in Houston. 10-16 record, led the American League with those 16 losses, put up an ERA of close to 5, over 167 and 2/3 innings pitched. So a 2 WAR pitcher the last couple of years. Another guy that we probably moved on from at just about the right time. Justin Gibson was an outstanding reliever for us for many years. Many-time All-Star, also won the Mariano Rivera Award. He was a guy who very consistently, as you'll see, led the National League in games pitched and holds for us for a very extended period of time. Has definitely struggled with injuries and not been nearly as effective as he was with us since leaving our Colorado squad, but still chugging along for the White Sox at the age of 37, now 38. .382 ERA over 30 2/3 innings pitched for Chicago this year. Former closer Adonis Valer, .398 ERA for the Braves. So two of our former closers are on the Braves this year. Valer, who when he left, we gave the job to Schweitzer. Once again, is replaced by Schweitzer as a closer, although I guess he never really had that role with Atlanta since he came there from Kansas City as a free agent this past offseason. Adonis Valer certainly had the longest run in his career and the best run with us. Did save 42 games in Philadelphia 4 years ago, and then 46 with the Royals 2 years ago. But he saved 40 games for us 5 straight years before we moved on from him. So certainly another guy who seems like he had his most successful run with us in Colorado. Mike Witherspoon, former first-round draft choice, didn't play with anybody this year, still a free agent looking for a job. Did spend some time with Baltimore in the 2044 season. Doesn't look like anything more than a replacement level type pitcher at this point. Dan Patterson, another guy who was a former very high pick for us. I believe he was also a first rounder. Split the year between AA, AAA, and the majors this year with the Mets. .235 ERA over 7 2/3 innings at the major league level. Patterson has had opportunities over the years with a number of different organizations, but looks like he could be on the tail end of his career as a fragile, soon-to-be 33-year-old who's nothing special at this point, but does remain popular in the clubhouse and brings some positive personality traits to any team he does end up signing with. And in our next episode, we will check in on how the careers of some of those younger and top former Rockies ended up turning out, but wanted to close the books on many of them since it's been a few seasons since we checked in on how some of our former players were doing. The Guardians ended up upsetting the Baltimore Orioles in the NLDS, so what that means is if we're able to get to a World Series, we'll have home field advantage there. The Mariners took out the Blue Jays in 5 games, and just as we defeated the Cubs in 4 games, the Braves took out the Mets in 4 games as well. Injury situation, nothing really changed. Fortunately, injury to Kevin Roberts Jr. was something that was not serious at all. Mario Manriquez, though, still with an unknown recovery time from that strained ACL, so we aren't going to add him to the roster. Jefferson dealing with a strained back, just going to have to suck it up. Dyer still out with that foot contusion for the next 3 days, but we're going to keep him on the roster simply because there's not necessarily a better player that we think we've got in AAA, even if it means that we'll be a guy down for the first couple days of this series against the Braves. And we will be facing off, as I noted, against the Atlanta Braves. The 84 and 78 Braves were your National League South winners this past year. Similar to the Cubs, we were 7-5 against the Braves this year. They ranked 11th in runs scored and 10th in the National League in runs against. So certainly on paper, would think that we should be favored to win this. We've got the righty Jesse Hoffmeister and his nasty stuff back on the mound. Righty Ruben Medina on the mound for Atlanta. Split the year between Washington and Atlanta. Looks like he was a trade deadline acquisition by the Braves. Did help propel them to that division title. 4-4 with a .336 ERA in 12 starts down the stretch for Atlanta. And we once again fall behind 1-0 in the series in a game started by Hoffmeister. Our former closer, Eric Schweitzer, gets the save today. Arellano, the catcher, with the only home run of the game. But once again, we are in a early deficit in the playoff series. The Braves scored a run in the third, added 2 in the fourth. We came back to tie things up in the bottom of the fourth on the 3-run homer by Arellano, but they added 2 more in the sixth and held us down after that. Hoffmeister, 3 earned runs over 5 innings pitched, only struck out 3. He's got a 5.56 ERA in these playoffs, which is certainly not ideal. Medina with the victory for them. Soto and Schweitzer combined for 3 2/3 innings of scoreless relief for Atlanta. So once again, our team is in an early deficit. Mario Manriquez is now healthy, so we do have some more options if we were to suffer an injury on the team at this point. Not necessarily going to add him in the middle of the series. Dyer should be fully healthy by the time we get to game number 3 in Atlanta, but good to know that we've got the option now with Manriquez being healthier if we do have some additional injuries or issues with the infield. Got the option for Mario Manriquez as this series moves along. We've got our ace, or I guess technically our number 2 starter, since we still have Jesse Hoffmeister as our number 1 starter on the mound, in Ray Salas. Atlanta with the right-hander Fukuyoshi Kawachi, another guy who was picked up by Atlanta right before the trade deadline, 2-3 with a 3.91 ERA, also a 1 WAR over the 12 games that he pitched for them. So Atlanta was dealing before the playoffs, or before the trade deadline, trying to ensure they'd get the division and get into the playoffs, and we're facing a couple of guys that they picked up right before the trade deadline in these first 2 games. Do get the win today, 7-4. Coons with the win in relief. Kawachi takes the loss. Ryan Harville with the save. Daniel Torres with a home run. RBI double by Kevin Roberts Jr. in the bottom of the fourth. That gave us a 5-4 lead, breaking up a 4-4 tie at that point with a lot of scoring over the first 3 innings of the game. Ended up winning 7-4. Salas threw 107 pitches, but only gave us 3 innings pitched. Allowed 5 hits, 4 runs, 2 of them earned, while walking 4 and striking out 6. So certainly not his best performance. Roberto Ramirez, forearm stiffness that he's dealing with. Alex Gamez, knee inflammation. So we continue to struggle keeping our team healthy during these playoffs, but once again, we take the second game of the series at home to be heading on the road in a 1-1 tie. And we get ready for the next 3 games here in Atlanta. Minimum viable product is obviously winning one of them and ensuring that we've got another game, at least in Colorado this year. The goal, clearly, though, is to win 2 of these games and to be heading back home with a lead. We've got the righty Takamasa Ichimura on the mound. Atlanta with the right-hander Rich Gutierrez. He was 8-5 with a 4.80 ERA this year, just a bit above replacement level. Doesn't have the most impressive stuff, but does not walk very many batters. Still would hope that this pitching matchup favors us, but does not when all is said and done today, as we drop game 3 to fall behind 2-1. Gutierrez outpitched Ichimura. Soto with a save in relief. Home runs for Sansao Samaro and Ken Ramos for the Braves. They scored all 3 of their runs in the top of the first, or the bottom of the first. We scored both of our runs in the top of the 9th. Jefferson reached on an error by the shortstop. Arellano with a sac fly in the inning. So interesting. All the scoring was in the first or the 9th innings in this 3-2 game. We ended up out hitting them 7-5, but unfortunately they outscored us 3-2. Gutierrez was really good. 3 hits, 1 walk over 7 innings pitched. Soto was not great in relief. Not sure why they went with their closer in the 8th inning and then turned things over to Soto in the 9th. Ichimura with the quality start. After that first inning, he was basically lights out, 3 earned runs over 7 1/3. Jim Johnson got 2 outs in the 8th, but we are down 2 games to 1 as we prepare for game number 4. The crafty veteran Leo Martinez on the mound for our Rockies. 23-year-old Adam Beaver, number 87 prospect in baseball, who was 3-2 with a 4.01 ERA this year after getting called up from AAA, on the mound for the Braves. Stuff is not impressive, but his movement is above average, decent control. Feel like the 23-year-old against the perennial all-star, 3-time Cy Young Award winner Martinez in a game number 4 is a matchup that we should like, and we do get the win 6-5. Decisions went into the bullpen. Ramirez with the win for us, Soto with the loss, Harville with his second save of the series. The banged up John Jefferson does hit our lone home run. Busted things open a bit with 4 runs in the 5th inning. Gamez with an RBI double and then a bases loaded double for Torres. But they came back with 2 runs each in the 6th and 7th to tie it up. Jefferson's solo home run there, though, in the top of the 8th gives us the 6-5 victory. Martinez, good solid outing. 6 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned runs over 5 2/3 innings. Joss gets the ugly hold, allowing 2 hits and a walk and 2 earned runs over just a third of an inning. Ramirez with the win. Earns that as the game got tied up while he was pitching, and then we took the lead back before Halota came on. Halota and Harville combined for 2 perfect innings to finish the game off for us. So we've executed on the minimum viable product by guaranteeing we'll be playing another game in Colorado this year. Game number 5 will determine whether we'll have a lead or be down 3-2 in game number 6 when we do get back to the Denver area. Game number 5, a rematch of game number 1 on the mound with Hoffmeister and Medina. Hoffmeister, of course, has started the first game of both series for us, and we've lost both of them. 0-1 with an ERA in the mid-5s in those 2 starts for him. He's making almost $40 million a year, signed him to a massive deal a couple of years ago to keep him from hitting free agency. And hopefully he'll help make things worth our while today. Would love to get this win and head back to Colorado with the lead in the series. And Hoffmeister finally comes through, gets the W. Velez with the loss, Harville with his 3rd save of the series. Got a home run from Rogelio Gonzalez. Taking a look at the box score, the Braves scored in the bottom of the 1st. We came back with 3 in the top of the 6th. RBI single by Vera, and then the 2-run home run by Gonzalez. They cut the deficit to 3-2 in the 8th. We extended the lead to 4-2 in the top of the 9th. And they got a run in the 9th, but we end up getting the 4-3 victory. 4-for-4 day for the youngster Luis Vera, so a great performance by him. Kevin Roberts Jr. with his 5th stolen base of the playoffs. The veteran hitting .343 overall for the playoffs. Clearly not as effective in this series as he was in the NLDS when he batted over 500. Hoffmeister with a nice start. 4 hits, no walks, 1 earned run over 6 innings while striking out 6. Ramirez and Halota and Harville got the job done. Wasn't necessarily pretty. Sansao Samaro injured while while throwing the ball. That could be a big loss. Carlos Valles and Adonis Valer also injured while pitching. Alex Gamez, as has often happened, injured while running the bases. He's been dealing with that lower body injury basically throughout the playoffs, and we continue to allow him to exacerbate things by keeping him in the lineup, but it's playoff time. Game number 6 back in Colorado, did what we needed to do to ensure that we'd be heading back to Colorado and heading back home with a lead. Salas and Kawachi in a rematch of game number 2, which we won. And our Rockies are headed back to the World Series. The rookie Luis Vera is your National League Championship Series MVP. So the veteran outfielder Kevin Roberts Jr., who was a cornerstone with us for decade and a half at this point, is your MVP of the first series of the playoffs. Luis Vera, who is likely the future of these Rockies, wins the MVP in the NLCS. John Jefferson with another home run in this game. Salas with the win. Kawachi with the loss. We had a 7-0 lead by the end of the 4th inning. The Braves did score runs in the 7th and the 8th, but by then, too little too late. Monster game by Jefferson, 2 for 3 with 4 ribbies. Vera, 2 for 3 today with another ribby. Kevin Roberts Jr. also drove in a run for us, 2 for 5 on the day. Salas, no runs over the 6 innings he pitched. Tomas Pena, the 5th starter, who's been working as a long and middle reliever for us in the playoffs. Not the greatest outing, but we get the W, and no new injuries for our Rockies. Rough outing for Kawachi, who dropped his record to 0-3 in the playoffs this year with an ERA of over 12. And we will await the answer as to which team we're going to be facing off against, the Mariners or the Guardians, in the final postseason series for this run with the Rockies. And looking forward to a good World Series against the Seattle Mariners, who took out the Guardians in 6 games. So the best team in the National League are Rockies against the second best team from the regular season in the American League, the Seattle Mariners. We've got Hoffmeister back on the mound for game number 1. Would certainly love to get a series off to a victory at home, which we haven't done in either of the first 2 series. But a really good pitcher on the mound for Seattle, Victor Garcia. He won the Mariano Rivera Award in 2037, the Cy Young Award in 2043. 13-9 record with a 3.56 ERA and a 4.4 WAR for Seattle this year. So a really good pitching matchup here in game number 1. And we do finally win the first game of a series. Went to the bullpen, the youngster Menivar with the victory. Garcia did take the loss. Got home runs from Tyler LeCuet, the catcher, backup catcher, or more accurately, the platoon catcher who plays against lefty pitching typically, as well as your NLCS MVP, Luis Vera. Taking a look at the box score, we scored a couple in the bottom of the first, but they came back with a run in the third and 2 in the top of the fourth to take the lead. But after that, it was all Rockies with 9 runs for us across the 5th, 6th, and 7th innings on the way to an 11-3 victory for the Rockies. 3-hit days for Rogelio Gonzalez and Luis Vera. Everyone in the starting lineup except for Gamez, who's still dealing with that knee inflammation, had at least 1 hit today. Hoffmeister, not a great outing. Menivar, though, with a brilliant relief performance, pitches the final 4 2/3 innings, 1 hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts, didn't allow a run to pick up the win as a long reliever for us. 3 potential injuries for them. Strained groin for shortstop Justin Felder, blister for the reliever Kyle Filer, and a sore shoulder for the left fielder Enia Chavaria. So Garcia, not a great outing. 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs over 5 1/3 innings. The goal is clearly to take a 2-0 lead in this series to Seattle, really put some pressure on the Mariners. Our manager wants to throw Ichimura in game number 2. I think we may overrule him. I don't know why, given that Salas is now on full rest, why our manager thinks waiting till game number 4 to pitch him is the optimal strategy. But I think we're going to go for the jugular today. Seattle's going to have the 28-year-old left-hander Brian Barnett on the mound. Not the greatest stamina in the world, kind of a 5+ inning pitcher. 12-8 with a 3.57 ERA and a 2.1 WAR for Seattle this year, so certainly a solid pitcher. But like I said, we are going to make sure that Salas gets the start today if our manager will let us. And I don't know whether or not I forgot to mention, but the 2 best pitching staffs in baseball are Rockies, the best pitching staff in the NL, against the Mariners, who are the best pitching staff in the AL. We do have Salas on the mound, and we do take the lead in the series, or extend the lead in the series more accurately. So we've got our job done at home, won the first 2 games there. Joss with the win, Barnett took the loss, Harville with another save. A couple of home runs from Seattle, and we did not have any. Seattle had a 2-1 lead heading into the bottom of the 6th. We tied it there, scored 2 runs in the 7th, Gamez with a double, and then an RBI single by Carlos Bear Barrel de Villa to give us the lead. They did come back with a run in the top of the 9th, but we were able to hold them off. 3-hit day today by the left fielder Tony Lamone. Not a lot of offense otherwise. Salas, 99 pitches, was fine. 2 earned runs over 5 1/3 innings, allowed 6 base runners total, struck out 4. So he continues to pitch well for us, and we did enough to get the win. Salas actually named player of the game, even though he did not get the win for us. So good performance, and we are 2 victories away from potentially closing out this series with back-to-back titles and 9 championships overall during our run, but we're not there yet. And heading into game number 3 with a 2-0 lead over Seattle, the goal would be to never play another game in Colorado this year and win at least 2 of these 3 games, or potential 3 games here in Seattle. Minimum viable product, of course, is winning 1 game and heading back to Colorado with a lead in the series. We've got the right-hander Ichimura on the mound. Seattle, 27-year-old right-hander Michael Weiss on the mound, 13-11 with a 3.51 ERA, led the American League with just 1.2 walks per 9 innings. Outstanding control, although his stuff is certainly not that impressive. But they get the win, 2-1. Looks like it went into the bullpens, though. Hill with the win in relief, Joss with the loss for us. Taking a look at the box score, we scored a run in the first. It was an RBI by Tom McNeil for our lone run. They came back with runs in the 6th and 7th, though. Only 11 hits on the day between the 2 teams. 3 hits from Dyer, 2 from Bear Barrel de Villa, and then McNeil's RBI was the only other hit on the day for us. So not a lot of offense from either team, but they did what they needed to do, got the victory. Joss, as we talked about, with the loss in relief. Hill with the win in relief for Seattle. Second baseman Hakeem Bin Mahir, diagnosis pending with an injury for him. Weiss, the starter, earns the player of the game for Seattle. So they bounce back from losing the first 2 games to take game number 3 in what will be the almost certainly final time we see Leo Martinez on the mound while we are GM of the Rockies. He'll be going for us in game number 4 against Luis Heredia, 32-year-old right-hander, was 7-6 with a 3.62 ERA, put up a 2.2 WAR. Another guy whose stuff is not all that impressive, but has really good control. He was an all-star back in 2042 for the Mariners. And the Mariners have tied things up, so home team has won all of the first 4 games in the series, and a little pressure on us now. We don't want to go home behind, and we're going to need to win tomorrow to ensure that we don't. Another home run from the youngster Vera, Doyle with the W. Martinez takes the L. Seattle erupted in the 4th inning for 8 runs off of us. I'm assuming that chased Martinez from the game. Only 3 innings pitched, 10 hits, 2 walks, 7 earned runs. So Leo Martinez loses his first game of the postseason. A game score, an ugly 7 for him. Carlos Davila sets the NL playoff game record with 5 stolen bases. Absolutely ridiculous, giving him 7 through the postseason. And Davila 1 for 3 with 2 runs scored, walked a couple of times, so he was incredibly active on the base paths. But when all was said and done, this is now a 3-game series. Mentioned the minimum viable product for us was to win 1 in Seattle. And we've now got to do that today, a rematch of game number 1, Hoffmeister versus Garcia. We won that first game 11-3, but as we talked about, Garcia is a very good pitcher. And the Mariners are putting the pressure on us. Thought we might get the storybook ending to this series with the Colorado Rockies that we've been playing for over 10 months at this point. But the Mariners, with 3 straight wins at home, have pushed us to the brink. Hoffmeister with the loss, Garcia with the victory for Seattle, Carmona with the save. Took a 1-0 lead in the second, extended it to 2-1 in the bottom of the 8th. We scored a run in the top of the 9th. Luis Vera, who's been our best offensive player through these playoffs, with an RBI double. But too little, too late. Hoffmeister was good today. 5 hits, 1 walk, 2 earned runs while striking out 9. Probably his best performance of the playoffs thus far. But when you only score 1, giving up 2 runs means you're going to end up the loser. And unfortunately, that's the situation for our Rockies. So 3 days ago, we're feeling like we might have, as I said, a storybook ending to this Colorado Rockies series. We still could, but it's going to be a lot more difficult to execute on. So our backs are against the wall in Colorado. We've got the guy that we'd want to have on the mound, though, Ray Salas, who, as we talked about, likely going to win a 2nd straight Cy Young Award this year. 2-0 with a 2.29 ERA for us in the playoffs. He's going up against Brian Barnett again. The last game we won was Game 2 of this series, also in Colorado, with this same pitching matchup. Can we extend this series to a deciding game number 7, or do the Mariners claim the World Series title on Halloween 2045? And the Mariners storm back with 4 straight victories to win the 2045 World Series. We don't get the storybook ending for our Colorado Rockies series. Salas takes the loss in relief. Kevin Roberts Jr., the veteran, did hit a home run for us to account for our lone run, but a 5-1 victory for the Seattle Mariners. They scored 2 in the top of the first, solo home run from Chavarria, and then RBI double by Serrano. And honestly, that was all they were going to need. Roberts Jr. brought us back to a 2-1 deficit in the second. But we did not score another run on the season. Roberts Jr. 4 for 4 with a ribby, so he hit .328 with a homer and 6 ribbies across the playoffs. John Jefferson, 3 homers and 11 ribbies for us, and Vera, as we talked about, extremely productive, 4 homers and 15 ribbies. Carlos Bear Barrel Davila with another couple stolen bases in this game. But Salas, 7 hits, 1 walk, 3 earned runs over 5 innings, did strike out 9, but lost his first game of the playoffs in the final game of our season. Joss and Coons both gave up runs in relief as well. over 60,000 fans in Coors Field for the final game of this World Series and the final game of this playthrough with the Colorado Rockies. Mentioned that we were going for our 9th World Series win with these Rockies, which we ended up not winning. Interestingly, we lost our first World Series with these Rockies back in 2030, and we're also going to have lost our last World Series appearance with these Rockies in 2045. In between, of course, we won 8 straight appearances in the World Series, but we go out on the wrong side of the ledger here in 2045. And we've made it to the beginning of the postseason, an option year decision needed for Alex Arellano, but we are going to be retiring as general manager of the Colorado Rockies later on today, so we will let the new GM make that decision. And new budget for next year, going to be $304 million, so that'll be a $14 million boost for the new general manager to work with. Review of our season goals. Happy that we extended Bear Barrel Davia. Pleased that we almost won it all. Didn't acquire a big-time player. Still wants a better record in extra inning games. Ultimately wants us to win the championship, extend the young starter Tomas Pena, acquire a top player, improve our record in extra inning games, and build another dynasty, but that will be someone else's quest. And speaking of quests coming to an end in what could be only viewed as perfect timing, Kevin Roberts Jr. has decided to hang things up. Don't always see players retiring at a pretty appropriate time in OOTP. Sometimes they linger, but he has decided to retire. So fitting end to our run as the GM, that the best position player we had throughout the series also leaves the team at the same time. The Rockies have retired his number. KR Jr. With an outstanding career spent entirely in Colorado. He was the best draft pick we ever made. Picked him 5th overall back in 2026. So after our first year of the series, when we played through 2025 and had a rough year with the Rockies, picked him 5th overall, and he became everything we possibly could have hoped. 3-time MVP, 5-time Silver Slugger, 11-time playoff series MVP, was a member of all 8 of our championship teams, and was also an 11-time All-Star. Led the National League for the second time with 58 steals this year. If you followed the series over the years, you may remember that I thought he had a chance at becoming a 500 guy in terms of homers and steals. But several years ago, I thought he had a better chance to make the 500 home runs, thinking that his power might hold up longer than his speed did. Was clearly completely wrong about that. Over these last 3 years of his career, stole well over 100 bases while hitting just 30 home runs. 218 average for him this year, 17 homers and 55 ribbies. Did have that league leading, as we said, 58 steals. Still drew a lot of walks, 88 WRC plus, 3.2 WAR. Was a really good field for us in center field with a 7.4 zone rating, 1.042 defensive efficiency. Took over in center for Castro after he left and had a very healthy season. Roberts Jr. retires at the age of 37, topped 2,000 hits this year, finishes with 423 homers, over 1,400 runs scored, over 1,300 ribbies, and 527 stolen bases. 78 career WAR. We'll find out 5 years from now whether KR Jr. will be a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. Also a number of other moves on this team, staff members retiring in several teams. We lost our scouting director, Felix Zabala, Also lost our bench coach, Tristan Johnson. You can see some other minor league teams with some changes there as well. So going to be a big off season for these Colorado Rockies. We'll do a quick review of our stats for the teams right now before we finish up this episode. Won't go into the same depth as normal, but we'll show them all to you because we'll be checking in on the key players before we finish up the series in the next episode. Fourth in the NL in runs scored, first in runs allowed, as we were talking about throughout the playoffs. We've already talked a lot, obviously, about our top starting pitchers. Harville, 37 saves for us as a reliever. Ramirez, Halota, and Joss had good, solid years for us as relievers. Jim Johnson, nice year for him as a middle reliever. The youngsters, C.J. Coons, Tomas Pena, and Ernesto Menivar all look like they could be important parts of this team heading into the future. Jorge Pacheco ended up hurt for the playoffs. Steve Herbst did not make the playoff roster, but obviously some outstanding results this year from our pitching staff in our final go-round with these Colorado Rockies. Check in on a few of the key players, and then I'll display the stats for the rest of the team to you. Tom McNeil had some injury issues this year, finished with a .243 average, 13 homers, and 49 ribbies. He's finally arbitration eligible, coming off of the worst year of his 3-year career, but still would expect that he's going to be a pretty important offensive player for these Rockies into the future, or at least he would be if I was in charge. We signed Carlos Bear Barrel Davila to that big extension earlier this year, and he came back with the second best season of his career, put up a 6.2 WAR for us, 122 WRC plus, hit .289, 31 doubles, 6 triples, 17 homers, stole 50 bases for us, and of course had that incredible 5-steal game in the World Series for us. Expecting him to remain a contender for all-star appearances and gold gloves, and who knows, maybe even an occasional Silver Slugger award over the rest of his career. Last but certainly not least, the youngster Luis Vera. He was, of course, the NLCS MVP, number 10 prospect in baseball, was an IAFA signing for us back in 2042, made it to the majors this year as a 21-year-old. .254 average, 36 doubles, 4 triples, 20 homers, scored and drove in over 80 runs each. 106 WRC plus, barely above replacement level, as his defense in both left and right field was problematic. We had started him out in right where he was bad, gave him more playing time in left over the second half of the season. Unfortunately, he was also very bad defensively in left field as well. But with Kevin Roberts Jr. retiring, that is going to open up some money for this upcoming offseason, and it's very conceivable that the new GM isn't going to invest as heavily in scouting and player development as we did. We do leave the Rockies with the number 2 ranked minor league system in baseball. Talked about Menivar already. Jose Martinez, player who was an IAFA signing from us about 2.5 years ago, made his debut in the DSL this year, hitting .333. Certainly looks like he could end up having a great career. He's someone that we will track into the future. Manny Hernandez, IAFA signing from 2038, 11-3 with a 5.28 ERA in AAA. The 24-year-old presumably will get a shot in the majors next year. Corey Folsom, third baseman, also a top 100 prospect. He was our first-round pick a year ago in 2044. Hit .260 with 6 homers and 55 ribbies and 173 at-bats in the ACL for us. Still looks like he could have tremendous home run power if he reaches his full potential. Andres Garza, IAFA signing from 1.5 years ago, number 82 prospect in baseball. The Blade is at our international complex. Expect him to make his professional debut next year. Matt Metz, 21-year-old right fielder, was a 7th-round pick back in 2042. Split the year between A and High A, where he combined for 23 homers, 112 ribbies, hitting over 300 at both levels. Certainly looks like he could be a very interesting power hitter for us. And the 7th and final top 100 prospect that we leave the Rockies with is the left fielder John Keller, 4th-round pick in 2043, hit 363 in rookie ball this year. 4 more players among the top 200 prospects. Adam Watkins was a 3rd-round pick in 2043. Split the year between rookie ball and A ball, went a combined 9-0, still hasn't lost a game as a professional. He's a guy who we really like his movement and his control potential, but think his stuff may end up being even worse than we had originally thought it would be. Carlos Negron, 3rd-round pick from 2044, was good in rookie ball this year as a 19-year-old. Likely will be looking to move up to A ball next year. Danny Lothar was a 4th-round pick in 2041. Split the year between AA and AAA. Combined 13-2 record for the pitcher among those 2 levels. Certainly looks like he could be a good, solid major league starter. And our final top 200 prospect is the 3rd baseman Mark Kritze. 15th-round pick just 3 years ago out of the University of San Diego. Hit 320 with 34 doubles in AAA for us this year. Looks like he could be a pretty useful bat. Not really sure exactly where he'll end up defensively. First base is probably his most logical position. Question whether the bat will ultimately be good enough to justify playing him there. But again, that will not be our decision. And I mentioned that I'd put up the stats for all of our players for those of you who are interested. The catching platoon ended up being very productive this year. Also had some pretty productive years out of our infielders. Nick Dyer was up primarily because we had so many injuries to the likes of Gamez and Jefferson and others over the course of the year. He was really productive for us. Mario Manriquez, again, a low batting average, but did have some pop in the bat. Daniel Torres, 17 homers and 97 ribbies in what will likely be his final go-round. He spent the last year and a half with us after he was a trade deadline acquisition for us back in 2044. John Jefferson, brutal year for him, hit just $176. A lot of our young infielders struggled with the bat. Luis Escobar was 0 for the 4 at-bats he had this year. Jake Kubas hit $175. Mario Manriquez, as we talked about, 229. Steve Weech just 203. Greschak and Limon, the 2 platoon outfielders, we signed to minor league deals with major league options before this season began, given that we didn't have money to spend on much else in free agency. Both finished the year as below average offensive players in what will presumably be their only seasons with the Rockies. And with Kevin Roberts Jr. officially retired, finding out what happens over the rest of Leo Martinez's career will be an interesting thing that we'll look at in the next episode. It's possible he's pitched his last game in Colorado. He'll be 36 before next season starts. Has had a brilliant 15-year run with Colorado, although is now fragile in his mid-30s and certainly not as dominant as he used to be. 3-time Cy Young Award winner, as we've talked about earlier, a 218 and 86 record with a 3.01 ERA, a whip of just above 1, and an 80.2 WAR. So unless he has some negative WAR seasons, Leo Martinez is going to finish with a higher WAR than Kevin Roberts Jr., but those two have been joined as a hip over the last 15 seasons in the majors. Obviously, both were the only 2 players who were parts of all 8 of our championship teams, and they both had great careers. But Martinez is a potential free agent. looking for 4 years at $27.2 million a year. The selfish part of me that wants him to spend his career in Colorado would want me to make an offer to him right now, but it's only fair that I let the new general manager do that. And it was the manager options screen where I can quit the current job, take one last look at the history here. Obviously a good run with the Colorado Rockies, winning percentage of over 600. Doubt that we'll match that with whatever we end up doing and whoever we end up playing with our long play series in OOTP 27. Decision history, best trade we ever made was the trade for the closer Adonis Valer. Faced off against him in the NLCS this year, gained 12.3 WAR in that deal. Gained 11.8 WAR in the deal for Anthony Pack Jr. that we talked about earlier, and gained 10.6 WAR in the deal where we picked up the left-handed reliever Jason McKinney, who had some nice years with us. Also 10.6 WAR in the trade where we picked up Bob Russell, traded away Patterson, Waymont, and Rumler, 3 players in that one. Worst deal, though, we ever made, and the most impactful, actually the 2 worst transactions we ever made, both lost much more WAR than any positive deal we ever made. Traded Jose Orellano and Jimmy Barreto, Cole Klecker, and Marco Hernandez, along with Charlie Condon and Hirokazu Takara in the very early stages of this, well, not that early, 2031, to get Dylan Jordan in return. Ended up playing well for us, only retired a couple of years ago, but lost 18.9 WAR overall in that deal. And then we lost 13.3 WAR when we traded away Ryan Walker, Willie Torres, Chase Conger for Tyler Soderstrom. So 2 real poor decisions there. We look at the best acquisitions, not surprisingly, Martinez, Kevin Roberts Jr., Mike Castro, Jesse Hoffmeister, all on that list. Scouting discovery, 3 draft picks, and then the free agent signing of Noah Schultz, great. Carlos Bear Barrel de Villa's career still has hopefully a lot in front of it. Greatest losses, Jimmy Barreto. He was the big part of that trade, that ill-fated trade that gave us Dylan Jordan. Jimmy Barreto was a good, solid major league pitcher, primarily with the Angels. I'm sure if we were to go back, his lack of control was a reason why I was willing to include him in the trade, but put up a WAR of close to 18 over the course of over a decade in the major leagues, primarily as a starter. So a nice career for Mr. Barreto. We'll certainly look at more of the history of the Rockies and more of what happens to this team over the next many years, and whether KR Jr. and Leo Martinez end up as Hall of Famers in the next episode, which I think will be the final episode of this series. But we're going to officially quit our job here, and the last thing we'll do is check in on award season for this 2045 season before finishing up this episode. So after a great run with the Rockies and a lot of fun over the last 10 months in real world time, we are no longer in charge of Colorado. And although our career as a GM is over, flattered by a number of teams offering us jobs, every team in the AL East except for the Tampa Bay Rays made an offer to us. Certainly always tempting to get an opportunity to take over the Yankees, but although there's a lot of job offers for us out there, actually a ton of teams making us offers, not just the majority of major league teams, but you see we had offers in many other leagues as well. But our career is over. We've had a nice run. Probably going to go get a cushy TV or radio gig at this point. And as I mentioned, we'll finish up this episode taking a look at the award winners. A couple of Rockies won Gold Gloves this year. The second-year international free agent pitcher Takamasa Ichimura won the Gold Glove Award at pitcher after also being named an All-Star. And Carlos Bear Barrel Davila, whose career will be looking on eagerly in the coming years, won the third Gold Glove of his career, his third consecutive Gold Glove at shortstop. And our former center fielder, Mike Castro, won a Gold Glove in left field for the Cubs. Josh Joss finished fifth in the voting for the Mariano Rivera Award. Silver Sluggers, no Silver Sluggers for our Colorado Rockies here in 2045. Luis Vera finished fourth in the voting for National League Rookie of the Year. Jeff Young of the Braves, who hit .239 with 31 homers and 99 ribbies, earned the award. Former sixth-round pick out of App State, number 77 prospect in baseball, beats out our Luis Vera, who, of course, was the number 10 prospect in baseball for the National League Rookie of the Year. Our young manager, Adam Moreno, your NL Manager of the Year here, going 92-70. The big awards, Mike Finlay of the New York Yankees wins your AL Cy Young Award, 13-3 with a league best ERA, WHIP, BABIP, strikeouts per nine, FIP minus, and WAR. As anticipated, Ray Salas of our team was your unanimous National League Cy Young Award winner. Second straight award for him, as we talked about earlier, led the league in strikeouts, WHIP, FIP minus, and WAR. The Gold Glove winner, Takamasa Ichimura, finished third in the Cy Young Award voting this year. Your American League MVP in a very split vote, Dennis Bingham beats Dave Rhymes. Dennis Bingham of the Yankees, shortstop, led the league with 168 hits, .310 average, 24 homers, 40 steals, a league best 7.7 WAR, just barely edges out third baseman Dave Rhines of the Blue Jays, who hit .310, 28 homers, 87 ribbies, while leading the league in slugging percentage, OPS, and WRC+. Your National League MVP, Earl Seelig of the San Diego Padres, led the league in hitting, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, WRC+, and WAR at 6.6. 28 doubles, 28 homers, 84 runs scored, and 87 ribbies for the switch-hitting first baseman. Salas, who, of course, won the Cy Young Award, did get one first-place vote and finished fifth in the MVP voting. Bear Barrel Davila also got some significant support. And those, and Takamasa Ichimura also some support as well. So our run here with the Colorado Rockies is officially over. As I mentioned, next time around we're going to sim somewhat deeply into the future, find out what happened with a lot of these players over the course of their careers. Do Kevin Roberts Jr. and Leo Martinez end up making the Hall of Fame? Does the new GM decide to bring Leo Martinez Jr. back or let him finish his career somewhere else? So still some loose ends to tie up for the Colorado Rockies and to tie up for this series, but we will be doing them passively as we've retired after a nice run as GM. Until our next episode, which will be the final one of this series, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.